After a car accident, I lost 3 years of my memory. My boyfriend's sister Lily said I'm her sister-in-law, so it seemed we were married. After dinner, I went to his bedroom, ready to sleep. He was wrapped in a towel looking at me in surprise. What are you doing?" I replied innocently. "Let's sleep." He stammered, What?" Just then, someone grabbed my hand. I turned around to see his older brother, Daniel, dressed in a suit, staring at me with a serious look. "Honey, what are you doing?" I stammered, What?" Without another word, he pulled me to his room and locked the door. As I fell into thought, he had already pulled off his tie and slowly tied my hands together. "You not only looked at him, you talked to him," he said with a cruel smile. "Tonight, I'm going to punish you." "Anna, why were you so careless? Are you feeling okay?" The young girl in front of me, wearing a middle school uniform, was my boyfriend's sister, Lily. I remembered celebrating my boyfriend, Luke's, birthday, and everyone was happy. He got a phone call, something urgent, and left in a hurry, asking his older brother, Daniel, to drive me home. On the winding mountain road, a drunk driver hit us. The car almost plunged off the cliff. Luckily, Daniel swerved and we only hit a stone pillar by the roadside. I shook my head and said, "I'm fine." I felt like Lily had suddenly grown up a bit, blossomed even. She had the unique vibrancy and beauty of a young woman. It seemed like just yesterday she was an elementary school student, excitedly declaring herself an adult, going to karaoke with friends and getting grounded for a month for not coming home by 6 p.m. She tidied up my things, and soon after, my mother-in-law arrived. She also nagged me to be careful, saying we were trying for a baby and something bad could happen. I was startled. I quickly checked my phone. It was 3 years later. When I returned to their house, I quietly processed the fact that I had lost my memory. It seemed that in these 3 years, Luke and I had gotten married. I got along well with their family. That was good. My mother-in-law was kind and cared about me. My sister-in-law, Lily, relied on me, treating me like her own older sister. It was already afternoon when we got home. Lily pulled me to her room, a pink princess room. It was on the third floor. She started telling me about her troubled love life. 2 boys liked her. She thought both were great, struggling to choose. Lily was very pretty and her personality was gentle and sweet. I asked for details, looked at their photos and various chat logs, trying to pick the best one out of 2 excellent boys for her. Without realizing it, we both fell asleep on the bed. At dinner time, the live-in nanny knocked on the door and we went out to eat. At the dinner table, my father-in-law sat at the head. My mother-in-law sat to his right. My boyfriend, Luke, just came home from work, dressed in a suit with a tired look on his face. I came downstairs and he looked at me, asking, "Are you okay?" Feeling his attitude was a bit strange, I smiled at him. "I'm fine." He seemed to be lost in thought for a moment, then I didn't know what he was thinking. I was about to sit next to him, but Lily beat me to it, sitting next to Luke, so I had to sit next to my mother-in-law. The dinner table was silent. My father-in-law was very strict about eating in silence, which Luke had told me about before. However, when we were dating, I hadn't met his parents, only his brother. I had also visited and stayed at their mansion before. At that time, their parents were in a different city, reportedly expanding a new business there. After dinner, Lily walked 2 dogs, a golden retriever, which I used to own, and a Samoyed owned by Luke's older brother, Daniel. I almost forgot I had a dog and instantly felt like a terrible person for forgetting my furry friend. My dog, Fluffy, jumped at me, wagging his tail excitedly, then bit the leash and put it in my hand. Lily said, "Anna, let's go walk the dogs together." I glanced at Luke, who was sitting on the living room sofa, listlessly pressing the remote control. Seeing me look over, he looked back. His gaze was strange, as if there were 1,000 words and as if he was in pain. I was about to ask him if something was wrong, but Lily had already pulled me out the door. Outside, she patted her chest and said to me, "Anna, didn't you say you'd never talk to Luke again? Why did you look at him so many times today?" She pouted, "I won't allow that. You have to keep your word. Otherwise, you'll just complain to me again." I was confused. Had Luke and I argued and I told Lily, swearing never to speak to him again? It shouldn't be like that between a married couple. But it was possible he did something to make me angry. Given his behavior today, there was no doubt. But it shouldn't be cheating. Otherwise, I wouldn't stay married. I couldn't figure it out. But I didn't want to tell anyone about my amnesia. I was afraid my in-laws and Lily would worry, and afraid Luke would take advantage of my memory loss to deceive me. What if he really did me wrong? I am a careful and suspicious person, so I wisely said no more and followed Lily to walk the dogs. The mountainside villa area had excellent greenery. It was already nestled against the mountain and had a lake, making the environment very peaceful. White cranes flew over the lake, moss grew on ancient trees, and the air was moist. Lily pleaded with me again, "Anna, can you talk to Daniel and get him to agree that let me travel abroad with my classmates during winter break?" What kind of trip? Lily told me their plan. A group of middle school students, not even graduated, were going to travel through Europe without a guide, relying entirely on themselves. I wouldn't feel comfortable, let alone her brother. She shook me, playfully begging, telling me about their preparations and plans. She wanted independence, to see a wider world, to be responsible for her own life, and then she wanted to have exciting adventures with her classmates. I felt a little envious listening to her. My memory was still stuck in my second year of college. I was still young and full of life. But then I woke up and I was married. I wondered what my job was now. Laughing and chatting with Lily, we arrived home around 8 p.m. Fluffy and Sammy ate their supper and went to sleep. Lily's friend called her, she answered, checking if her in-laws were around, and then hurried upstairs. The mansion had 3 floors. My in-laws and Daniel lived on the 2nd floor, and Luke lived on the 3rd. I thought about it and decided to go up to the 3rd floor, ready to go back to my room. No matter what had happened, it was better to clear things up. And Luke had something to say too, right? He also needed to shower and sleep. The front gate opened and a car drove in. From the transparent glass of the 3rd floor staircase, I saw it was Luke, his older brother Daniel. He was also dressed in a suit, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, his indifferent eyes hidden behind them. Noticing my gaze, he looked back. I quickly looked away and walked towards Luke's room. Although I had lost 3 years of memory, when I met Daniel before, I always felt he was too aggressive, and I always wanted to avoid him.
The first time we met, Luke said no one was home and brought me to his place to hang out. That night, I was happily playing with Fluffy in the living room when I saw a man with a cold, handsome face enter. He saw me and also froze. His eyes stared directly at me, making me uncomfortable and my heart pound. After some explanations, we clarified our identities. Then Luke took me and Fluffy and immediately ran off. The second time, a group of us went skiing, but we played too late. I went to the restroom at the back. When I came out, everyone had already skied away. I anxiously fell and sprained my ankle. The cable car also stopped, so I could only walk down. I was desperate. Because the temperature was below freezing, I felt like I was going to freeze to death. But I still thought they would definitely come look for me. I walked for almost 2 hours on my own. Then I heard the sound of a helicopter. I happily waved, but then saw Daniel's grim face. His brows were tightly furrowed. As soon as he landed, he grabbed my hand without a word and dragged me onto the helicopter. I should have thanked him, but he was too serious. I felt like he'd hit me if I spoke, so I shut up. Then he spoke. "Luke isn't right for you. In this weather, in this situation, he actually went down the mountain by himself." I was so embarrassed at the time, but I thought everyone had agreed to ski down and no one expected me to suddenly want to go to the bathroom, so it could only be considered an accident. However, I really didn't notice what Luke was doing at the time. The third time we met was on Luke's birthday. He left in a hurry, Daniel drove me home, and then we had the car accident. I wondered how I had gotten along with my brother-in-law these past 3 years. Probably still like a mouse seeing a cat? But Daniel was really so serious and old-fashioned. Every time I saw him, I felt a little guilty and scared. I truly felt sorry for his future wife, having to face an ice-cold face every day. I decided not to think about him anymore. I arrived at Luke's door and opened it. It still felt a bit unfamiliar here. Luke had just finished showering and was coming out, wrapped in a towel, drying his hair. Seeing me, he was very surprised and stammered, "You... uh, how did you get in?" I innocently said, "Shower? Sleep." He stammered, What?" Just then, my hand was grabbed, and I turned around. Daniel in a suit was staring at me intently. "Honey, what are you doing?" I stammered, "What?" Without a word, he pulled me to his room, as domineering and authoritarian as before. The door slammed shut and locked. Why did he call me his wife? And he pulled my hand away from Luke. Luke didn't say a word, and Daniel even took me back to his room. Could it be? As I fell into thought, he had already pulled off his tie and slowly tied my hands together. I stared at him with wide, innocent eyes. He looked back at me. "You not only looked at him, you talked to him." He forced a cruel smile. "Tonight, I'm going to punish you severely." He pushed me onto the bed, then leaned over me. I looked at his handsome face, so close, my heart racing, my cheeks flushed. I tentatively called out, "Honey?" He hummed, "What were you doing looking for him?" His voice was still cold. I turned my head and saw our wedding photo hanging in the room. I actually married Daniel? Before I could figure anything out, he fiercely kissed my lips, and my whole body tingled as if electrocuted. My body felt addicted to him, craving more and deeper contact. I was cleaned up and put on the bed, my cheeks flushed, looking at Daniel. I hadn't expected Daniel, who looked so proper and serious, to be so strong in bed. Compared to Luke, Luke was truly lacking. How did I end up with Daniel? Was it because of his prowess in bed? It was perplexing. While we were intimate, he had already pressed me about why I went to find Luke. I lied and said I wanted to borrow money from him. He sneered and became even more intense. I was still languidly reliving our lovemaking when he propped himself up and looked at me. I asked uneasily, "What's wrong?" He said, "You're not yourself." I chuckled, "Nothing's wrong, is it?" He pulled me into his arms, kissed the top of my head, and asked, "Did you miss me while I was away?" I nodded. "Yes, I did." He paused, then said, "Sleep." I yawned. I was indeed very sleepy. The next day, my phone was returned. Lily volunteered that she had taken it for repair. I quickly went back to my room to check my phone. There was no contact for Luke anymore. However, I had many contacts with Daniel, basically sending messages to each other every day, sharing daily life. I checked my social security records and driving records and found out I worked at the company as a fashion designer. However, due to the car accident 2 days ago, I hadn't gone to work. Thinking it was boring at home, I drove to the company. In the underground parking lot, I actually saw Luke. He was leaning against his car door, smoking. Thinking about yesterday, I felt very awkward.
I quickly parked my car, wanting to go in through the other side. But he came over in a few steps, grabbed my hand, and asked me, "Why are you running?" I immediately pulled away. I hadn't forgotten that Daniel said if I had any more contact with Luke, he would make sure I couldn't get out of bed. So cruel. He looked a little disappointed. "Are you not even willing to look at me anymore? Then why did you give me hope yesterday?" I said nothing, waiting for him to give me more information. Why did I break up with him? I used to love him very much. After all, he was very good to me, gentle and thoughtful, and he was my first love. I was quite happy when I was with him. Seeing me silent, he said anxiously, "Anna, there's really nothing between me and Wendy. I don't love her. Daniel must have played a trick, called her back to drive a wedge between us." I was surprised. Wendy? I didn't know this person. "Daniel is a despicable person. What kind of good life could you have with him? Look at you. You're like a mouse seeing a cat when you see him. Didn't you say you wanted to study design abroad? I'll go with you, and we'll get away from all this trouble and start over." He held my shoulders, saying seriously, "Anna, from now on, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. I'll put you first. I swear I'll only love you." I pursed my lips. It seemed he must have cheated. I ignored him and pushed him away and walked off. He wouldn't let me. During our argument, a woman came over and asked us, "Luke, Anna, what are you doing?" I looked at the newcomer in confusion, then my eyes widened. This person looked about 60% like me. Only then did I realize how beautiful I was. Daniel got a good deal. To have wedding photos with someone as beautiful as me? The woman came over and held Luke's arm, smiling. "Luke, isn't Anna your sister-in-law? It doesn't look good for people to see you pulling and tugging like this." He pushed your hand away and said, expressionless, "This is my business. No need for you to worry." The woman looked disappointed, gently caressed her belly, and then spoke again. "Look, are you free? I have something to talk to you about." I was terribly awkward, my hand still held by Luke. I struggled a bit, but he wouldn't let go. Luke started to pull me away. The woman got anxious and immediately said, "Luke, I'm pregnant with your child." My eyes widened. Luke looked at her in disbelief. I quickly took the opportunity to break free and ran off without looking back. Upstairs, I was still wondering if that was Wendy. Luke said there was nothing going on, but she was pregnant with his child. I followed the floor guide to the design department. When I entered, I found it was all small two-person offices, and the names were written on the doors. I immediately went in. The other seat already had a colleague, so I sat in the other seat. I first opened the company directory, found Wendy's name, and saw her profile picture. It was indeed the woman from downstairs. I then looked through my phone's photo album. My wedding with Daniel was only 3 months ago. In the album, we had intimate photos together from 2 years ago. It seemed I had fallen in love with him again. The autumn/winter fashion competition was currently underway, with a top prize of $2 million. Everyone was working hard. I looked at my designs and had a few pieces, so I started working seriously. At lunchtime, a few women from the department invited me to join them. I didn't know them, but I followed along. Unexpectedly, Wendy also came. The company had a cafeteria, and the food was quite good. As I was eating with relish, Wendy suddenly covered her mouth and gagged a few times. I instantly lost my appetite. Everyone asked her what was wrong. She smiled weakly. "I'm pregnant." Everyone was stunned for a moment, then congratulated her. Also said they hadn't seen her boyfriend. She said, "Actually, Luke and I are a couple." Everyone was shocked for a moment, then congratulated her, becoming even more eager in their attitude towards her. After lunch, when we got back, an older colleague asked if I had a partner and offered to set me up. I understood. My relationship with Daniel was a secret. At noon, Daniel sent me a message. "Come up for a nap?" I checked his office number and felt a little tempted. I also wanted to tell him some information to see his reaction, so I went up the fire escape and secretly went to his office. He saw me enter, closed the document he was reading, and went with me to the nap room. I took off my jacket, ready to lay down, but he hugged me from behind and started kissing me. I stammered, "Aren't we supposed to be sleeping?" His smiling voice came, "Isn't this sleeping?" It felt strange. Why were we doing this in the office? My body couldn't help but get excited again. To relieve this excitement, I could only say to him, "Did you know Wendy is pregnant?" He didn't stop, just said, "Oh," and asked, "How do you know?" I said, "She told Luke and I overheard it." He paused. "You saw him again?" I said, "It was a coincidence." My performance must not be good enough if you're thinking about other things. After saying that, he pushed me on the bed and started making love to me. When I woke up in the afternoon, it was almost 4 p.m. He hadn't gone out to work either. He was propping his head up, staring at me intently. I quickly ran down the fire escape, and I told him, "I'm never coming here again." He smirked. "You said that last time too." What? I fled in a hurry. Back in the office, I was terrified that someone would know I was slacking off, but I worried too much. Design work was very flexible, and sometimes not coming to work was fine, as long as the work was done. I yawned, still wanting to sleep. Then I saw Luke coming over. I pretended not to see him. But he asked me, "Anna, are you free? I need to talk to you about some work." He was the VP. What could he want with me? Everyone looked at us strangely. I couldn't refuse, but I didn't want to go with him either. As I hesitated, Wendy arrived. She was also in the design department. She looked fragile and said to me, "Anna, I'm already pregnant. Can you please stop bothering Luke?" I pointed at myself, looking incredulous. "When did you go blind? Didn't you see he called me?" Everyone around gasped. I continued, "We already broke up because of you. What more are you unhappy about?" I looked pitiful. "Wendy, you can't destroy my relationship and then expect me to force him to be loving with you. Don't be too much." Then I indignantly rushed out the door. When Daniel came home that night, I complained to him. Today, Wendy publicly told me to stop bothering Luke. His face immediately turned cold. "Is Luke dead? He can't even control his own woman?" I pouted. "Yeah, and he even said he wanted to talk to me. I'm married. What's there to talk about?" His face grew even colder. Truly disrespectful. He held me and comforted me for a while. It was strange that I was with such a serious person and accepted it so well. At dinner, at the usually quiet table, Daniel suddenly spoke. "Luke, congratulations." Luke lifted his eyelids and glanced at him. "Congratulations for what? For you stealing my girlfriend?" My in-laws' faces darkened. Lily immediately woke up from her doze, staring at us with open eyes. I was so embarrassed I could have dug my toes into the floor. I never imagined this could be openly discussed. My father-in-law said, "What's past is past. Don't bring it up anymore." My mother-in-law said, "What's there between brothers that can't be resolved? Don't dwell on it." Daniel said, "Luke, why are you still saying such things? Isn't Wendy pregnant?" He looked at me. "Anna and I are also trying for a baby. Our children will be around the same age." My in-laws immediately looked at Luke. "That girl from the Wendy family is pregnant?" Their faces immediately turned ugly. "Since she's pregnant, hurry up and get married and have the baby." Luke, however, said, "The child is her scheme against me. I'll make her abort it." My father-in-law slammed the table. "This is nonsense." My mother-in-law sighed. "Didn't you like her since you were little? Now that she's finally come around, why are you being like this?" "Liked her since childhood? So he was using me as a substitute all along. If Daniel wasn't by my side, I would have been heartbroken." Luke suddenly stood up. "Why are you so biased? Daniel stole my girlfriend and you don't say a word of blame. Instead, you criticize me every day. I don't like Wendy anymore. She drugged me. You don't ask a single question and you want me to be with someone I don't love? Have you ever thought about my feelings?" Daniel sneered. "When you were with Anna, you were unfaithful, not only loving another woman in your heart, but also frequently seeing Wendy." Anna was in danger several times, and you were never there. Later, you were the one who broke up, saying Wendy was your true love. He huffed. Anna was almost broken then. If it weren't to prevent you from making a mess, would I clean up after you and comfort her? We got together entirely after your breakup. For you to say now that I stole your girlfriend is simply twisting facts. I looked at him in surprise, not expecting him to say so much. Luke's face was grim. I said we needed to cool off. I wanted to confirm my feelings, not break up. I angrily slammed the table. What? You are still trying to play the field? If I had known you were such a jerk, I should have cheated on you for revenge.
Luke was like a wild beast in a trap. He clutched his hair and said to me, "Anna, I'm sure I truly love you. Believe me." My father-in-law was furious. "Do you have any respect for family? She's your older brother's wife." Daniel pulled me up. "I can't stay in this house. Mom, Dad, Anna and I are moving out." Lily immediately said, "Brother, I'm coming with you. Wait for me." My father-in-law slammed the table. "Everyone sit down. Whoever moves out, don't come back. I'll pretend I don't have that son." Daniel sat down, and I even heard him sigh. I turned to look at Lily, and she also looked disappointed. After dinner, Lily and I went to walk the dogs. I asked, "Why do you also want to move out with us?" Lily said, "Dad is like an old stick in the mud. He doesn't allow this, he doesn't allow that. I can't even bring friends home to play. If I go out with you two, no one will control me." I hesitated. "Your brother?" "He's always on business trips. Why does he want to move out?" Lily looked at me, hesitating to speak. Finally, she shook her head and told me, "Anna, I actually think Daniel is a bit scary." That sentence had maximum chilling effect. Even after showering, I kept wondering what he had done. That night, Daniel brought out a pair of handcuffs and wanted to play cops and robbers with me. I was shocked. How could he, with such a serious face, as if he didn't need a sex life, say something like that? It had already been a bit too much before, but he clearly couldn't accept my refusal. Before falling into a hazy sleep, I was still thinking, were Daniel and I this passionate every day? This was too unrestrained. The next day, Luke pulled me into the fire escape while I was in the restroom. I was holding a vase, intending to go to the washroom to change the water. I was startled. Why was he waiting for someone in the restroom? He pulled me and cut straight to the chase. "Didn't you ask me to help you escape? Why are you acting like this now?" My eyes widened. He frowned. "Did my brother find out again?" I was too shocked to speak. "He's found a beautiful place with clear mountains and waters. We'll live there for a few years, and once my brother's guard is down, we'll go abroad. Do you really want to be locked up by him again?" Just then, the fire escape door opened again, and Wendy appeared, looking at me with resentment. Before I could react, she pushed me hard. The glass vase in my hand fell down the stairs and shattered. I couldn't dodge in time. Luke tried to pull me, but he missed. I fell straight down. Below, I could not only hit my head, but also, because of the broken glass, it could pierce my body. Just then, I heard someone below shout, "Anna!" Then my head was caught from below, but my whole body was still badly scraped. I fainted. I remembered. When Luke and I were together, he often disappeared later and seemed distracted. Someone sent me anonymous messages, all with photos of Luke and Wendy together. Not bedroom photos, just pictures of them together. The way Luke looked at Wendy, even a blind person could tell it was different. The sender even taunted me. "You are not loved. He only sees you as my substitute. I am his true love. He's just my dog. I'll just wave my hand and he'll break up with you." At that time, I thought Wendy sent this message. My pride would not allow me to confront Luke or beg for reconciliation. He truly loved someone else.
I learned from Lily that Wendy was a few years older than Luke, and he had always followed her around. Later, Wendy went abroad, and Luke's parents didn't want their son to go abroad. So Luke stayed in the country, Wendy found the boyfriend abroad, then Luke found me. It broke my heart. After I knew everything, I went to a bar to drown my sorrows. Then Daniel appeared. Seeing him, sorrow filled me, and daring thoughts arose. I said fiercely, "Your brother cheated on me, so I'll cheat on him too. I'm going to sleep with all his brothers." Then I kissed him. I felt a bit dizzy. Anyway, we kissed passionately. It wasn't until we were in his car and he started taking my clothes off that I realized what I was doing. I was mostly sober now. I quickly stopped him. I was just joking. But then he started kissing me again, making me dizzy. As everyone knows, sometimes that isn't so hard. Before I noticed, things had already gone too far. There was nothing I could do. What was done, so I could only continue. After that time with Daniel, I wanted to say it was an accident and didn't want to continue with him. He called me and asked me out, so I told him that. He was silent for a second, then said it was best to discuss it in person, then we had dinner together. I was so awkward I wanted to dig my toes into the floor. I said I was drunk that day. I said I would break up with Luke and didn't want to have anything to do with Daniel. He just said, "Let's eat first." I pulled myself together and started eating. The restaurant he chose was both expensive and delicious. After dinner, he asked me where I lived and offered to drive me home. It was during the summer break of my sophomore year of college. I found an internship, and because it was far from school, I rented an apartment nearby. Daniel was a very authoritarian person. He was used to giving orders, and I wasn't good at refusing people, so I just gave him the address. When we arrived downstairs at the apartment building, I pursed my lips. "I'm here. Bye." He looked at me and said, "I'm a bit thirsty. Can I come up for a glass of water?" Oh my gosh, I was so innocent back then. I had no idea that going upstairs for water was an invitation, so I was hesitant, but I felt it would be rude to refuse, so I took him up. The moment he entered, he pressed me against the door and kissed me. His kiss had a kind of magic. From initially resisting and pushing him away, I ended up wrapping my arms around his neck, kissing him passionately. When I realized what was happening, he had already started. From then on, we started a casual relationship. He would come to my place without telling me in advance. Sometimes I'd come home and find him waiting at the door. Tall and long-legged, leaning against the door, sometimes looking at his phone, sometimes resting his eyes. He always just showed up. Then he had a key made for himself and just moved in. The most terrifying thing was that I hadn't even broken up with his brother yet. I texted Luke that I was breaking up, and he said we needed to cool off first. Then he went abroad to chase Wendy. I was furious and spent more time with his brother, partly for revenge, and partly I might have been a bit starved for affection. Even if the relationship wasn't official, being intimate with him, being kissed and hugged by him, made me feel loved and cherished. Especially after my first love treated me as a substitute and made a fool of me, I started to wonder if I wasn't good enough, if my personality was flawed, if I wasn't pretty enough to be unappreciated. So Daniel appeared, filling my emptiness, diverting my attention, and boosting my confidence. Luke was transferred to a company abroad. That jerk was so awful, he still sent me gifts on holidays, all expensive jewelry. I harbored thoughts of revenge, wanting to wait for him to return and discover I was with his brother to thoroughly humiliate him. But before I could humiliate him, I discovered Daniel was crazy.
Once he was sick, and I wanted to take care of him. I found an album in his room, full of pictures of me. They were all secretly taken, before we even got together, and some photo backgrounds were from my home. I broke out in a cold sweat. Then I discovered he had installed surveillance in my rented apartment. The anonymous messages were also sent by him. He even knew how to frame Wendy, writing messages in her tone. I was truly speechless. These two brothers, one more of a jerk than the other. It made me frantically wonder if I had ever picked my nose in the living room. I threw the evidence in his face and said, "It was over." He explained, "I installed them because I was afraid something would happen to you. If you fainted and no one found you, how terrible would that be? When I missed you, I would see what you were doing at home. When you weren't home, I would worry about where you went. This way, I could ensure your safety and ease my longing, killing two birds with one stone." Thinking about where you went, I immediately demanded, "Did you put a tracker on my phone?" I said several times I had dinner with colleagues and he was always nearby. He held my shoulders and said seriously, "No." But the next day, I asked my friend to check my phone, and there really was a tracking app. And not just that, but also a hidden camera app. He could find out everything I did on my phone. I was furious. I immediately canceled my lease and internship and went back to school. Daniel called me, and I blocked him, but he came to my school, apologizing with a remorseful face, saying he shouldn't have disrespected my privacy. His attitude was sincere, and there were red streaks in his eyes, making it seem like he genuinely knew he was wrong. He said he had a birthday gift for me in the car and asked me to come get it. I immediately said, "I'm not going to have sex with you again." He looked very hurt, and I immediately felt like a terrible person for hurting him. But when we got to his car, he just pushed me in and told the driver to go. I struggled in vain and was imprisoned by him. Who would believe it? He imprisoned me, and then he said, "Anna, I truly love you. From the first moment I saw you, I liked you. Why can't you understand my good intentions? It's so dangerous outside. You should just stay here and calm down." He just locked me up in the mansion. There was also a room filled with all sorts of props and a whole room full of sexy lingerie, all in my size. He said he had wanted to bring me here to play for a long time, but was always afraid of scaring me. I went from cursing him to reasoning with him, threatening him, begging him to let me go, to finally having to accept an unequal treaty and marrying him. Because no matter what I said, that lunatic would look at me with a serious and proper face and with a hint of deep affection in his eyes. He would say, "I love you. I only did this because I couldn't help it, baby. Forgive me. I can't lose you. Losing you was like a dish without salt." After he had me locked up for a month, I broke down and asked him, "What do I have to do for you to let me go?" He said, "Marry me." He was like a madman, but I had no choice but to agree. I traded the shackles of marriage for real freedom. Daniel swore he wouldn't monitor me anymore, but I was half believing. Then I found a tracker on my phone again, and surveillance at home. There was nothing I could do but continue to be with him. During this time, Luke even came back to me, asking to get back together, saying I was the one he truly loved. I had already crossed countless mountains, while he was still trying to find his sword by marking the boat. My heart felt utterly desolate. All the male contacts in my phone, except for blood relatives, were deleted by Daniel. He said I was young and beautiful, and he felt insecure, so he deleted them. In retaliation, I deleted all the female contacts from his phone. He was overjoyed, saying I was finally getting jealous. After graduating from college, I got my diploma and immediately ran away. I didn't want to be with a madman. I felt suffocated. His hugs were suffocating. During intimacy, he would act like he was starved for 800 meals, wanting to go to extremes. If I wanted to go out with friends, I had to report it, and he would come up with all kinds of reasons to say no. It was best to stay within his sight. It was dangerous outside. I ran to a different city, threw away my phone, and bought an untraceable SIM card. I decided not to work for a while, staying home to work on my portfolio, preparing to apply for studies abroad. Then, one day, I returned from a walk in the park to find him sitting in my rented apartment, calmly flipping through my portfolio. Seeing me return, he smiled slightly. "Long time no see, honey."
That time, I was caught and locked up for 2 months. He said next time it would be 3 months, and he looked forward to it. The car accident happened that time he told me he wanted me to have children. I could already imagine that with the child, he would have another way to control me. So while he was on business trip, I immediately ran. But then, I accidentally got into a car accident. Lily also knew about me being locked up by Daniel. She even called the police for me and complained to our in-laws. My in-laws called him a madman. Daniel said he was a madman, and he even wanted to take us all to die together. We were all terrified. I also couldn't really watch him get arrested and put in jail, and there was no evidence. So, from the beginning, Daniel knew I had lost my memory. He even continued to deceive me, saying we were trying for a baby. He acted as if we were very in love. I actually believed him. After all, his outwardly charming demeanor was indeed quite attractive. I woke up, saw the ceiling, and fell into sadness. It would have been better to stay amnesic. My husband was crazy. What was I going to do? My husband held my hand, his voice a mix of surprise and concern. "Honey, you're awake? How are you feeling?" I thought a long time had passed, but it had only been a few minutes. I was still at the company. Daniel had also arrived. Luke's face was swollen like a pig's head, and Wendy's face was also swollen. I heard someone gasp. I shook my head and said, "I'm fine." The ambulance and police had arrived. I felt a bit dizzy. It wasn't until the doctor came that I noticed Daniel's foot was bleeding. Glass was deeply embedded in his soul, a shocking sight. He had come up from downstairs, and to catch me, he had stepped directly on the broken glass. Tears streamed down my face. We both lay in hospital beds. His foot was thickly bandaged and splinted, while my scrapes were only minor injuries. When the doctors and nurses left, I moved from my bed to his, nestling in his arms. I held him quietly, and he held me back. My heart was filled with both emotion and relief. If it weren't for him, I might really be dead. He said, "This time, Wendy intentionally tried to kill you. She must go to jail for a long time." I nodded. It was indeed terrifying, pushing me straight down, even without the broken glass. If my head hit the ground, I wouldn't have stood a chance. I hugged his waist and said in a muffled voice, "Thank you, honey." He hugged me even tighter. "Honey, I told you it was dangerous outside. Everything I do is for your own good." I stiffened. My emotional moment interrupted. I almost forgot he was crazy. But how was it that this crazy man made me feel so secure? The end. If you like this story, make sure to subscribe. If you didn't, send it to someone you hate. Honestly, Daniel is cray-cray. Run for the hills if this happens in real life. We post daily story updates for my personal collection. We also have playlists for different types of stories. Check them out. See you tomorrow.